Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 130. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. And be sure to head over to the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive interviews, album reviews, show reviews that you won't find on the Rock is George podcast. My guest for this episode is vocalist Paul Laine of the DEFIANTS. Back in 1990, Paul Laine released a fantastic solo album called Stick It In Your Ear. I discovered this album maybe 20 years ago, thanks to the advent of internet streaming. It is a near perfect melodic rock album, in my opinion, and somehow it must have got lost in the shuffle when I was younger in 1990, or maybe it was just out there and I was into something else at the time. From there, Paul became the frontman of hard rock act Danger Danger from 1995 to 2001, producing some pretty damn good albums along the way. Paul's been a part of many solo ventures and group ventures since that time period. In 2015, he reunited with fellow Danger Danger bandmates BRUNO RAVEL and Rob Marcello to form the DEFIANTS. The DEFIANTS are set to release their third album, called Drive, on June 9th through Frontiers Music. And here's Paul Laine to tell you more about it. If I knew absolutely nothing about the DEFIANTS, how would you describe the band's music to me?
Boy, that's a tough one. Old guys rocking. No, I would say we're a band that kind of has a nod to the past in terms of kind of AOR, old school hard rock, but with a fresh take on it.
It's kind of interesting, that term AOR, because it didn't exist like in the 80s where that sound was actually kind of defined. It was just rock music back then.
Right. But, we're gentlemen who remember when, right?
Absolutely. So the DEFIANTS is sort of like Danger Danger in an alternate universe, because it's got 3/4 of Danger Danger, and it's you, it's Bruno, it's Rob. I mean, how did this project originally come together in 2015?
Really at behest of Serafino from Frontiers. He had, Danger Danger had signed with Frontiers and done the Revolve album with that label. And Frontiers started sending me record offers back in 2012 to do a solo record. But in that time, I was busy with in country music and doing Dark Horse and writing for other artists. And I just, at that time, it just seemed like not the right time to be doing it. And then Frontiers approached Bruno, kind of realizing that Bruno and I were still really solid friends. And I just, decided to do it for sentimental reasons, really thinking, Bruno and I, we talk to each other a couple times a week, have ever since I left Danger Danger, and just remained friends. So we both just kind of thought it would be a laugh, no one's going to hear this. Yeah, let's make this record that no one's ever going to hear. So we spent 3 months writing it, and that was, we had no idea the reaction that it would kind of create. And what was cool with Frontiers is the deal we made with them is that you leave us alone. We're just going to make the record we want. We refuse to take the money, the advance money. Just hold on to it. If you don't like the record that we hand in, no harm, no foul. Because we really didn't want anybody looking over our shoulders. We just want to make the record that we wanted to make. And him and I both kind of had this sound in our head about, like, what would it be like to do something that sounds modern yet, a tip of the cap to the past. And that's kind of, I think, what we do well, is kind of, match those two kind of eras together.
And here we are talking about the third DEFIANTS album. Comes out on June 9th. It's called Drive, for a band that you didn't think was going to get heard. Here we are on your...
Right. Yeah, man, I guess we just kept drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't know. I'm super happy that, that we got to continue on. I mean, obviously with the success of the first record, that allowed the second record to happen, and so on and so forth. So this record for sure took us the longest amount of time. I think we felt a lot of pressure to not necessarily exceed, but be as good as the last album, and just kind of move forward in the way that we wanted to musically, with the production. So yeah, we took a lot of extra care and time with it.
Do you guys have the opportunity to get together to write and record? Are you guys far away from each other and it has to be done through file sharing?
Never been in the same room for any record ever. So Bruno and I write all the songs. We just talk on the phone. Like, Bruno won't even meet me on Skype. We don't even have he's like, come on, man, I don't look so good. So we just send the ideas back and forth, talk on the phone. Basically, while we're making a record, talk on the phone almost every day. And that's how it works. But Bruno owns his own recording studio. I own my own recording studio. It's kind of the world that we know. So making a record, between both of us, or both producers and engineers, it's pretty easy to figure out where we need to go. And it's pretty easy to figure out when something has a shortcoming of some sort, either musically or sonically. And it works.
Well, let's talk about some of the songs that you've released ahead of the album. If you want to talk a little bit about the inspiration behind Hey Life.
Sure. Well, both Bruno and I, well, hey, listen, everybody through the pandemic was getting frustrated, and we started writing this record kind of at the beginning of that. And, both of our parents, ended up having health problems. My mom is in a wheelchair. She lost her husband to cancer. And so I that was all happening during making of this record. He got very sick and lost his battle. And so then I began taking care of my mom, and Bruno had similar issues with his folks being in and out of the hospital. They're in their 80s. So, it was just between everything with the pandemic and everything going on with our families, it was like making a record in a hurricane. So that song is kind of just him and I frustration, that life, gets in the way of everything else that's kind of, good and happy and stuff in your life. There's a lot of tragedy and sorrow, and anger and all those things that go along with what everybody was experiencing. So yeah, that's kind of the genesis of that song.
I'm sorry to hear it about your father and kind of your mom's going through.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a tough road, but my mom's coming out the other side, and we built a apartment for her on my house that's fully handy accessible, and she moves in next Sunday. So that took about a year to build, with all the city inspections and hoops you got to jump through. So yeah, it's like my Mother's Day for her begins next weekend. So yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's kind of wonderful full circle that I can have the opportunity to repay her for what she's done for me.
Absolutely. Now you get a little reflective on your second single, 19 Summertime. I think we all have those summertime memories that we look back on when we get older.
Yeah, I listen, I want to write a song that was like, that was a time machine that just kind of took you back. And those songs, like, Bruno and I discussed this, a lot. Those songs are actually a lot harder to write than a hard rock tune, a ballad or whatever. Something that's kind of infectious, but is kind of true to the spirit that we had when we were that age. So I just kind of wanted to write the ultimate tribute to my childhood, and like I said, I feel like that song is a time machine, because most people have heard it are like, dude, I put it on and I'm like, I'm back at this beach with this girl, or that guy, whatever. It's I'm with my friends and we just, graduated. Yeah, it's cool for me. How people kind of translate that song.
Do you have a third single that you're going to release when the album comes out?
Yeah, actually, before the record comes out, the next single, I think it comes out next week. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the date, but I'm a man of a certain age. And as my friends say, Paulsheimer's. It's called Go Big or Go Home. And I think it sounds like the video is going to look pretty epic. So I'm pretty excited what Kinorama, which is the film company in Italy that handles all of our stuff. I'm pretty excited to see what they're going to do.
It's kind of interesting, wouldn't you say, that music video has kind of made its way back around? I bet there was a point where you thought you'd never make another music video.
Oh, God. Yeah, and it came back around just when I don't want to make them. Like, before we shot this video, I was like, oh my God, I gotta starve myself. Bruno and I were like support for each other. He's like, okay, I'm 7 weeks and I've eaten a carrot and a boiled egg today. How you doing? So yeah, I mean, making a rock music video when you're over 50 is hey man, you do it. It's not.
Oh, they can edit you to look like anything you want. I mean, they do it in the superhero movies.
Right. I wish we had that team.
So there's got to be a story behind the album's title, Drive. There isn't a song called Drive. So what led to the album's title?
Yeah, kind of was just, something that we talked about while making this record. Like, why do we still have the drive to make this music, right? And also, it was every day that we were working on something, Bruno and I would, we talk to each other. Okay, I'm going to put this in my car and drive and go, check it out and see if it holds, so that's how we basically check mixes. That's how, for me, because I'm responsible for writing a lot of the melodies and lyrics, I put the tracks in my car and I just go and I pull over, right? For some reason, I seem to be able to compose lyrics and melodies while I'm driving my car. So, and that's every record I make, I just put it in and so, yeah. And then there's kind of the nod and the wink, the car is broken down. It's old. The wheels are falling off and it's not going anywhere. Originally, the idea is that we were skeletons in the car and they did a proof of it and it looked cool. But then I was like, maybe this is too much of a joke. So we put the cartoon characters of ourselves back in the car. Yeah. So hopefully that answers the question.
It does. Now you're 3 albums in. I don't think you guys have played live together. Is there any opportunities for that to happen?
Yeah, actually we have played live together. We played Frontiers Festival, I think 3 different years in Milan. We played Sweden Rock Festival. We did Rockingham and Nottingham. It's mainly we go to Europe. That's why, people don't really know that we're playing that much. Generally in this day and age, rock in Europe is something that's financially feasible, to be honest. The money that we get for shows makes it worthwhile getting on a plane to go over there. And, we're kind of well past the age of, getting in a van and driving around the country. And we'd have to probably do that in America. We'd probably have to kind of do it old school. And so, yeah, it just makes sense really to go where the show offers are and where the audience is kind of all. Festivals are easy because everyone's there. There's a lot of people and it's pretty easy to make it work when everybody lives so far apart. Bruno lives in New York. I live on the West Coast. Rob lives in Stockholm, Sweden. So yeah, let alone getting a drummer to go. So we always fly to Europe, do 2 days of rehearsal and then play.
The festival circuit's kind of backed up still from the lockdowns and the pandemic. Have you guys got any plans to play anything in the future?
Yeah, well, not till, for me with the Defiance, probably not till next year. As I say, I've been looking after my mother this year and last year, and once she's moved in, and I kind of can get the lay of the land, and I can get some more home support help, then I can head back out on the road again. So I'm kind of just looking at 2024 and taking care of my family first this year.
Outside of the Defiance, you do a lot of music for movies and TV and whatnot. You got your hands full with that. I saw. I was going to list off a bunch of things that you've done, but you've done so much.
Yeah, thank you. No, I realized right after the Defiance first record came out, I had a moment. I was in Venice, Italy, of all places, and I got an email from Frontiers saying, "Hey, your record just hit number 44 on the Heat Seekers chart on Billboard." And I was so ecstatic because I think I was 49 at the time. And I was like, I never in my life would I think that this would happen to me. And then I woke up the next morning and I kind of said, what next? I need to find a way. This is not sustainable. I need to find a way to keep composing for a living. And so that question was answered in a couple of weeks. Because of the Defiance, I started getting companies reaching out for me to write for television, first of all. So I thought, yeah, I can do that till I'm 80, as long as I can still compose. So that question was answered for me. And I jumped right in and started writing full time for shows like Pawn Stars and Counting Cars and you name it. And Monday Night Football, Below Deck, like just from the really cool to the really ridiculous, I'm your boy. so that, and then this year was really, really wonderful for me because I got a song in the new Tom Hanks movie. So that was like, I'm a giant Tom Hanks fan. So just to get to do that was a total honor.
And that movie is A Man Called Otto.
Otto, yeah.
Now, what I wanted to know about, when you do music and TV stuff, do you write an entire song or do you write it like in short? Do you write a short segment and then it gets used that way?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay. Yes. Most of the time I write an entire song. For television, when I have to do vocal stuff, it's a complete song. And do they use the whole song? No, but they'll use it in bits and pieces, So sometimes, I'll have the same song in the same show 3 or 4 times, but it's like, oh, they use the outro chorus there, they used a verse here, and it just all depends what kind of mood they're setting up and what kind of thread they're trying to weave through it, right? Because music is always so subliminal in film and television. People don't, I realized that myself the first time, I saw one of the first things I did, I was kind of like, oh, right. It's just background music in behind, I thought it would be this great, exciting moment. And it was kind of like, right. They use, 10 seconds of this 3-minute song I wrote. But as time goes on, you see what creative ways they use music. So yeah, it's kind of a roundabout answer. Sometimes I am just writing literally orchestral music or country music or pop music that's just bed music. I would say 80% of what I do has vocals in it, only because I am a vocalist and the companies I work for know that they can tap me to like, hey, we need like we need a Justin Timberlake like track to meet this, or whatever it is. And so, yeah, you put on a lot of hats musically, and that's kind of allowed me to, grow as a musician, as a writer, to be able to, have this other self that never gets bored because, tomorrow I'm going to write polka music for some Italian wine show. So, yeah.
So do you submit these specifically to the show or the commercial, or is there like a pool that you send your songs to that your song is chosen by these companies?
No, okay, so yeah, no, totally different way. I have a company, a bunch of different companies I work for. MIBE in New York. So they have A&R people who are already doing specific shows. So working with the music supervisor. So when I get the call to work on a show, it's like, hey, Pawn Stars needs this. It must be this kind. We need 3 to 5 pieces of music. We need it handed in by next week. And so I write for shows specifically that it's going into. Now, sometimes I won't even be told what the show is. I'll just be told, hey, it is a show about this, you know, or I'll get tapped to write themes for shows, you know, like what was the last one I did? I did Adam Eats the 80s. With the Adam Richman show, right? I think it's on Discovery or History Channel or something like that. So you know, and those are very specific, you know. So yeah, I rarely ever write for a library where it doesn't get used. There's sort of no point. I work for Crucial, which handles a lot of Netflix series. So, and that's very specific. It was Crucial who got me the Tom Hanks movie. So yeah, we have agents inside those companies that know our work and know what we're capable of, and go, yeah, that guy, perfect fit for this show, because the turnaround time is so fast.
You have another project called Jet Set Junkies with fellow Frontiers label mate Lee Revill from the Blood Red Saints. What's that all about?
Well, so Lee and I got Lee the moment I got the TV. Lee and I have been friends, first of all, for 30 something years. And we met at the show. It was an MTV Headbangers Ball tour in Europe. And I think it was in Manchester. I met him where he's from. And the tour was called Gods of AOR. And so I'm standing there during the day watching setup happen. It's a million bands over 3 days. And he taps me on the shoulder and he goes, hey, mate. He goes, if this is Gods of AOR, where the fuck's Journey? So we started laughing, and then we just became fast friends. And we made a promise to each other on that tour, one day we would make a record together, because I loved his guitar playing. And so we then again met at Frontiers Festival in 2016, I think. He tapped me on the shoulder again. He goes, guess who's playing the show? I'm like, you're in it? Okay. So he brought it. He goes, hey, remember when we made this promise to do a band together? I go, yeah, I'm still good. He goes, all right. So I go, hey, you want to work in television? And he said, yeah, I've done some TV work over here. So we started composing together for TV, and, you know, together for some things, and of course on our own for others. And then that's when we started. We worked on this David Hasselhoff show called Supercars of the 80s, where they did the Chips, right? The A-Team car, the Chips car, and Knight Rider, of course. So we wrote a ton of music for that show. And while we were doing that, we wrote all this kind of hard rock stuff. And we're like, we're not going to give this to this show. Let's actually make that the start of this record. So yeah, thank you, David Hasselhoff. We started the Jet Set Junkies from your show. So yeah, that's what, and we've just been slowly putting, I think we have about 7 tracks now in the can. We just released one teaser single because, you know, I think people thought it was fictitious because I was talking about it all the time. So, and then, you know, everything happened in my life, and the Defiants new record kind of all came in, so I had to put it on hold. So yeah, we're going to get back to it.
Awesome. Let's go back, hit the time machine 33 years if we could, to Stick It in Your Ear.
Sure.
Fantastic album. Really made me it made me a fan of yours.
Thank you.
So much so that 15 years ago, when my wife was pregnant, if we had a girl, it was going to be Doriana.
Oh, man. You had a boy, you lucky man.
We didn't name it Paul. We didn't name it Paul. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, this interview's over.
But What do you kind of remember putting together that album? You were a fresh face on the scene. You just signed to Elektra, I believe. So it was probably a pretty big deal for you.
Yeah, it was a massive deal. You know, I was a kid. I was 17 when I wrote most of the songs on that record. And I spent 2 years trying to get a record deal and finally did. And I guess the good thing about it was at the time, I got 3 major record deal offers. And that allowed me to create a bidding war, whereas basically what winning me was giving me Bruce Fairbairn. This is basically first label that gives me Bruce Fairbairn. I'm your guy, which was impossible and very cocky at the time because him and Bob Rock were the 2 kind of arguably biggest producers in the world, and Mutt Lange as well. But, you know, Bruce was local. I wanted to make my dream as a kid was to make a record at Little Mountain Studios in Vancouver, where all those great albums were made. So yeah, and it was a whirlwind for me. I started pre-production on that album when Aerosmith was making Pump with Fairbairn. So he just brought me to the studio and said, "Watch these guys make a record. I want you to watch and learn, and you know, bring your songs in, and we'll on my breaks I'll start kind of vetting them and telling you what I think should be cut and what shouldn't be." But you know, George, I went in there. My first thing was, you know, I saw Steven Tyler work and I was like, I want to quit. I think that this is like, I'll fucking never be that guy. I'll never be as good as that. And Steven was very cool. Taught me a lot about kind of how to think about writing. You know, how to work kind of on inspiration all the time instead of getting, you know, caught up in my own head about things. How to approach lyric writing, how to approach melody writing from the simple standpoint of, you know, don't let lyrics get in the way. Just scat the melody. Don't sit there and try and write out every single thing in a linear format. So hugely influential and in 2 ways, musically and also basically just how to conduct yourself in that environment, you know? So yeah, that was my kind of like kid from a small town, boom, I'm in the thick of it. And yeah, wonderful experience. Some of my best memories, you know?
Was there a real Doriana?
Everyone asked me that question. Yes, there was. And I'm going to leave it right there.
After you put the album together and you put your singles out there, what was it like kind of for this young kid to hear his song on the radio for the first time?
Oh my God. I'll never forget it. I was driving down the highway, listening to the radio, and all of a sudden the announcer starts talking about this single. I'm like, actually, I didn't even have a driver's license yet. I was like, I got my driver's license when I was like 24. Can you believe it? Oh my God. Anyways, pull the car over. And yeah, I lost my mind. And then, you know, a few weeks later, I was out on the road playing with Joan Jett and and Joe Satriani and just like, you know, a million different people and touring across Canada at first. And I had my idea of what having a record deal and fame and any sort of that kind of thing was instantly changed from the other side, because you realize, oh my God, this is just all hard work. It's never stops. You're on the road, and then when you're on the road, you're getting up at 5 to do interviews with blah, blah, blah. You know, my childhood idea of what it was to be a rock star was like full stop. You know, you're going to have to work hard all the time. So yeah, good times.
Sort of a landmark coming up for the album, the 35th anniversary. Is there any way you can do something special for that? Yeah,
I think Frontiers has approached me about doing a re-release of the vinyl, and I believe that's going to happen. They just made an offer on it, and I think I'm going to take it.
That's good.
So,
I was a
Yeah.
little worried that you didn't have the music. I would that.
No. I own the records. I got the rights to the album back in just, I don't know, by '95 or whatever, through a lawsuit that Little Mountain had taken against the label. And yeah, it'll be out in my book called My Name Is Nobody.
Well, certainly Stick It in Your Ear reached enough people for, you still to be making music today. So you're not nobody per se. It's just, it may be, bigger in Europe, kind of like in the 80s, bigger in Japan.
Yeah, that's really true. South America, same thing. It's weird how there are pockets. I guess it's not so weird. It's just, when you get a record deal, you think, oh, America, Canada, like that's going to be my oyster. And so very often it's other pockets in the world that take it for whatever reason and latch onto it and play the hell out of it. So I've been, really fortunate to or unfortunate to always have to get on a plane to go play the show. But, I get to go to Australia. I get to go to Europe. And I have a ton of offers from South America. I think I'm going to finally go down there probably next year and play some shows for the first time.
You mentioned it briefly towards the beginning of the interview. Your project Dark Horse came out in 2014. Let It Ride was the album, sort of a country rock hybrid. Do you have any plans to revisit this in the future?
Yeah, I think so. I recorded the second album, which I'm super proud of, and no one's ever heard. I like to think of it as like Southern rock with a little bit of country in there, but it's my modern day version of Leonard Skinner meets I don't know, pop. So I think I'll end up putting it out when I have the time to actually get behind it. I mean, the next year is going to be all about the Defiants, and probably doing more after getting to be part of that Tom Hanks movie, like more and more movie stuff I'm going to do. So I'm gonna, I don't know, man, diversify, just keep it all going. I'm 55 now. I'm trying to just keep grinding it out.
Well, you sound like you're hitting your stride, and
I hope so.
You got the new Defiance album coming out on June 9th through Frontiers Music. It's called Drive. Fantastic album. I've always been a fan of your work since the very first solo albums, and this has been something I can cross off my bucket list, finally being able to talk to you.
All right. Thank you, George. I appreciate it, man.
And I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. Thanks.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime.
Once again, I want to thank Paul Laine of the Defiants for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out their latest album, Drive, when it's released on June 9th through Frontiers Music. Head over to your favorite streaming platform. Check out the music that's available. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy. Support the artist. For all things The Defiants, head over to their Facebook page /The Defiants Official. For all things Paul Laine, head over to his Facebook page /Paul Laine Official. I also want to thank John Freeman of Freeman Promotions and Frontiers Music for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.